There ain't nothing more powerful than the odor of mendacity.
All right. Welcome back inside the law, everyone. I'm your host, Philip Holloway. I hope everyone's having an awesome day today. And while we're waiting on a few people to get in here, I want to know who amongst you saw. And if you didn't see, I want you to go check out Megan Kelly's show today, because she started out with yours truly and our good friend Viva Fry. We talked for about an hour and a half on all sorts of things regarding the legal news of the day and had a blast doing it. So I wanted to turn your attention over there at some point today. Don't leave yet, but do check that out once it drops, if it hasn't already. Viva and I had a great time, and I expect we expect to do that more. I expect to have Viva in here with me inside the law, and I'm going to go on his show. We've got lots of good things that we've got planned coming up in the immediate future and even longer term. So check that out. I hope everyone's doing great. And by the way, those of you who helped put me, I'm almost over the 32,000 subscriber mark. Thank you so very much. I'm trying to get to 35,000 subscribers. So if you haven't, please hit that subscribe button and tell all your friends. All right. So as advertised, and this is a relatively short notice, impromptu almost edition of the Inside the Law, we're looking at the Fulton County RICO case, the Fani Willis RICO case, and we're specifically looking at the appeal that's coming up later on this year. We now know that it has been docketed. We know that the panel of judges has been set, and we know that, at least for now, unless something changes with their schedule, the Georgia Court of Appeals is expected to hear oral argument on this issue of whether or not Fani Willis should be disqualified. And that argument is going to be on October 4th, right after my birthday. So I've got a lot going on that week. The way it works is Judge Scott McAfee has, and I'm just going to give a little background while I'm waiting on a few more people to get in here. Scott McAfee of the Fulton County Superior Court, he entered an order saying that Fani Willis had basically violated certain norms, certain laws, certain ethics rules pertaining to how prosecutors are supposed to handle their cases. It all stems from her having an affair with her paramour, the special counsel that she hired. It was a private lawyer. She hired him. She brought him in. She gave him a no-bid contract, and she paid him way, way more than she would have paid anybody else. And of course, the evidence came out that she had reaped the benefits herself monetarily of the money that she had steered to him in the form of luxury travel, cruises, trips to Napa Valley, and things of that nature. But in addition to that, there was way more to it than simply, let's just say, the trips and the things involving her paramour. There's a separate piece of this that doesn't get talked about as much, and it's called forensic misconduct. This is when Fani Willis went down to the well of a local church here in Fulton County, Georgia, and Big Bethel AME Church, I believe it was. And she went on a Sunday, and she assumed the pulpit, and she essentially called her detractors, some of the lawyers for some of the defendants in the case. She called them liars. She essentially talked bad about the defendants in cases that she was currently prosecuting and their lawyers. And you can't do that. Even the judge called her out and said, no, that's against the rules. It's improper. So the judge found that she had committed a number of violations, and he found that it did not justify him, at least in his mind. He didn't see the need to disqualify her. So what he did is he said, you get to either disqualify yourself, or you can just let Mr. Wade go, and that should be sufficient. Well, the parties asked him if they could appeal, and it has to be with his permission, because this is a pre-trial appeal. It's called an interlocutory appeal. Normally, you've got to wait until the case is over and you bring everything that you got and you present all of it to the Court of Appeals all at once. And the problem with that is you've got to wait for somebody to get convicted. And then the appeal takes, 2 or 3 or 4 years before you ever find out if he made an error here. So because of the nature of this appeal, he agreed that it could be done pre-trial. And the Court of Appeals of Georgia says, yes, we will agree to hear it. So now all the parties have submitted all their briefs and the case is docketed. There will be oral argument on October the 4th, unless it's changed, and it should be live streamed. All right. So all that being said, people have been asking me, and this came up some today when Viva and I were talking with Megyn Kelly on her show. And so it occurred to me, let's just take a look. Let's take a look at who are the judges on the Court of Appeals that will be addressing this issue in October. And of course, therefore, after that, there will be ruling on it, but it's going to be obviously after the election before there's even a ruling on this. So this case is effectively stalled. By the way, there's 434 people in here now. Welcome to every one of you. I'll see some of our regulars in the chat. We've got Assistant Chat Boss Kiana keeping law and order in the chat room. Thank you for that. And hello, everyone. Glad to see you. And I see the chat is very, very active. Love to see it. All right. Let's take a look at the Court of Appeals. All right. So this is the Georgia Court of Appeals. Now, the way it works is when you have an appeal pending there, you get a panel of the judges. You get a panel of 3. You don't get all of them. You got, 15 or so here. You don't get all of them, but you get a panel of 3. Now, the first one that we're going to look at, who is in our panel of 3, and it's in no particular order, but it's because I printed his bio out so I could read it a little bit better. But we'll go ahead and have a look here at Judge Benjamin Land. Okay. Judge Benjamin Land, we can see, was appointed as a judge of the Court of Appeals just a couple of years ago, July 20th of 2022. He graduated with highest honors, summa cum laude from the University of Georgia. Guess who else graduated from law school summa cum laude? Well, we'll talk about me another time. Finishing with a 4.0 grade point average. He graduated cum laude from the University of Georgia Law School in 1992, finishing second in his class. All right. While in law school, numerous academic awards, editorial board on the Law Review. All right. So had a good career in law school. And after that, it says he started in private practice, focusing on civil litigation and trial practice. Now, let me pause right here and let me just tell you guys, I have always believed that a judge who has spent some time in private practice is a better judge. They're more well-rounded. They have seen, they have more of a perspective, and they understand sort of what it's like for the litigants who come before them. They've had to, they've had to pay their employees. They've had to run their office. They've had to keep the lights open. They've had to deal with problematic clients. They've had to deal with scheduling challenges. They've had to deal with all of the things that we in private practice have to deal with that judges and government lawyers never have to deal with. Okay. So I've always believed that a judge who has spent at least some time in private practice is a more well-rounded judge in general. All right, let's go back and continue looking at Judge Land. He spent 26 years in private practice. He represented plaintiffs and defendants in a wide variety of cases. So it sounds like he did civil litigation. Record-setting verdicts. He played a key role in nationwide class action lawsuits. He engaged in significant complex litigation, tried cases to jury verdicts, earned the respect of his colleagues, and thoroughly enjoyed being in the courtroom. Again, I think a judge who has been a courtroom advocate and has spent time, on his or her feet in court arguing cases, I think that they make better judges for lots of reasons. So he left private practice in February of 2018 when former governor now, Nathan Deal, Republican of Georgia, appointed him to serve as a judge of the Superior Court for the Chattahoochee Judicial Circuit. So he was a Superior Court judge. So he was a judge that heard felony criminal cases, and he also heard civil cases. In Georgia, the Superior Court is sort of the trial court of general jurisdiction. There is one that covers every county in Georgia. Some counties have to share their Superior Courts with other counties, particularly in the areas of the state that are more rural. They have circuits, and the circuits might have 2 or 3 counties. And so that's why we refer to Superior Courts as, like in this case, the Chattahoochee Judicial Circuit. Fulton County happens to be the Atlanta Judicial Circuit. It's a big enough county to have its own circuit. He was elected then to that position in 2020, and he continued to serve as a trial judge until his appointment to the Court of Appeals. So he was appointed by a Republican governor to his first judge job in the rural Chattahoochee Judicial Circuit. And to me, that tells me that's probably a little bit more red than it would be blue in the Chattahoochee Circuit. But again, these are generalizations. I don't know that we can draw any conclusions from this. Continued to serve as a trial judge until he was appointed to the Court of Appeals. And that was again in 2020. So just a couple of years ago. During his time on the bench, Judge Land was known for fairness and impartiality, efficiency and work ethic, courage, compassion, uncontested integrity, etc., and so forth. Okay, so he says he's been active in his profession and in his community. Numerous law-related boards, has spoken on the topic of trial advocacy statewide, speaks to civic groups. It says during his law practice, he was awarded with the William B. Spann Jr. Award for pro bono advocacy. That's working for free on behalf of pro bono client, it says, whose case he handled from the trial court level until successful conclusion at the Georgia Supreme Court. Guess who else, by the way, became famous for, among other things, representing someone pro bono? None other than attorney Ashley Merchant, who is the person singularly, I think, most responsible for this case being here. She represented someone pro bono in South Georgia in a very high-profile murder case, but one that was by no means, conclusive of anyone's guilt. And she won an acquittal on the murder and almost all of the charges that were pending, and she did all of that for free. She actually also there was an issue about whether the government, if someone was truly indigent and they were entitled to a court-appointed lawyer, but if they wound up getting a private lawyer who took the case for free, they're still indigent. So are they then entitled to the resources of the state, such as funding for investigators or other costs associated with, a case, things that normally the public defender's office would have paid for. But in this case, Ashley made some law. The Georgia Supreme Court said, no, even in a case like that, the state still has to pay for costs of the defense, even if they're not paying the lawyers direct compensation. Anyway, I digress. So he's involved in pro bono stuff, Lawyers Club of Atlanta, lots of other things. It says he currently serves by appointment of the governor on Georgia Child Support Commission and the Judicial Nominating Commission, which is the statewide body responsible for providing recommendations to the governor concerning judicial appointments. So he probably was involved in Judge McAfee's appointment, because that appointment would have had to go through the Judicial Nominating Commission. It's not a conflict of interest. I'm just pointing out that I'm sure they know each other. Judges always know each other anyway. Okay. And it goes into, he works for Habitat for Humanity, loves hiking, etc., youth sports, coaches. He's a youth coach, very active in the community. All right. And also at his church. All right. So that's Judge Benjamin Land. Okay. Before we move on to the next one, I want to say hello to the 740 people or so who are in here. Thank you all very much. Please hit the like button. And by the way, if you like this content, There's links provided for you where you can support the channel. We always appreciate any support, but hit the like button. It won't cost you anything. And remember to tell people to subscribe. All right. I see the chat is very active. And Kiana, if you're able, I don't guess you are, but if anybody has any questions, I want to try to identify them when I check in. If you start by saying question and then ask your question, and if I can identify it and bring it in, I'm happy to try to answer any questions while I'm here. All right. Now then, let's go and take a look at the next judge, which in my stack, I've got Judge Trenton Brown. All right. Judge Trenton Brown was appointed and sworn in again by Governor Nathan Deal, former governor of Georgia. And he was, I guess he went straight to the Georgia Court of Appeals, and that was on May 16th of 2018. He previously served as a Superior Court judge in the Ocmulgee Judicial Circuit, which consists of 8 counties. So this is one of those multi-county circuits where you have Baldwin County, Greene County, Hancock County, Jasper, Jones, Morgan County, Putnam County, and Wilkinson County. And I can tell you that those are smaller counties. They're more rural counties, and they are more or less pretty much red counties in the state of Georgia. So he was appointed by Governor Deal in 2012. He ran unopposed 2014, 2018, also served as a state court judge in Putnam County. Having been appointed by Governor Sonny Perdue, another Republican former governor, back in 2008. Sonny Perdue served, I guess it's worth noting out, Sonny Perdue served as in the Donald Trump cabinet. Okay. I believe he was agriculture secretary, but he was in the Trump cabinet. But this judge was appointed by Sonny Perdue before that, when Sonny Perdue was the governor in Georgia, and he maintained the seat against opposition. All of this until he became appointed to the Superior Court. All right. So looks like he got a degree in economics from Athens, University of Georgia, went to law school at Mercer, excuse me. Yeah, he got his law degree from Mercer University in 1999. And after that, it says he maintained a general law practice before he got appointed to Superior Court. So here again, we have someone who's been in private practice. Doesn't look like he was ever a prosecutor, just like Judge Land doesn't appear to have been a prosecutor. But neither one of them, maybe I would say Judge Brown, if he maintained a general practice, he probably did at least some criminal defense, among other things. Benjamin, Judge Land, it didn't say if he'd ever done any criminal law, but he did a lot of civil litigation. So Judge Brown, it says, served by appointment of Governor Deal, is one of 3 judges to serve on the judicial retirement system of the Georgia Board of Trustees. All right. Listen to this. He served on the Governor's Court Reform Council. That's interesting. The Court Reform Council might be interested in ethics. He and his wife are graduates of Leadership Georgia. All right. Several other notable accomplishments. Lawyers Club of Atlanta. It says, listen to this, interestingly enough, he spent his early years in Tifton, which is in South Georgia, before he moved to Eatonton, Georgia. Again, that's over, it's east of Atlanta, and it's out in a red part of the state. It says he was an Eagle Scout and a graduate of Leadership Putnam. All right. So interesting pedigree there for Judge Trenton Brown. All right. Let's go back and check in on the chat, see how everyone's doing. I appreciate all 878 people that are in here now. And let's see, I do see a question before we move on to the last judge. Do you think the jurors in Trump's latest trial were his peers? Well, it's actually an urban legend, a myth that you get a jury of your peers. What you're entitled to is a jury that is made up of a representative cross sample or cross section of the community where the alleged crime is supposed to have taken place. So If the venue for the crime was Manhattan, then you're entitled to a representative cross sample of the Manhattan community on your jury. It's absolutely not a jury of your peers. How can you get a jury of ex-presidents who were building tycoons? That's not possible. So, and it's really the case anywhere where anybody is charged with any crime. You get a jury. It's a representative sample of your the locality of the venue where the alleged crime occurred. All right. Mary asks, can they sidestep the Court of Appeals by filing a habeas to the U.S. Supreme Court? So we did a stream on this the other day. I want you to go back and check this out. I think that there's a couple of ways that things could be done, but to be honest with you, and I told a reporter this yesterday for something that I guess that's going to be written up soon and published. But if I were representing Trump, you know what I would do right now? It may not work, and it's maybe a long shot, but you can't. All they can do is say no. It doesn't hurt to try. I would file something in the nature of a habeas, but I would file in a federal district court, and I would try to get an injunction seeking to stop the sentencing from happening before it happens. And I would allege as the basis for that is that, look, this is more than just my client here. There's a federal interest here, namely the interest that the federal government has in a fair and orderly election, one that's not absolutely full of chaos. So I would say to the federal judge, look, this is why you need to hit the pause button. It won't hurt anything for you to just pause things where they are right now. It's not like somebody's convicted of murder and you've got to throw them under the jail immediately. Let's hit the pause button for the sake of the country and the election right now, and not allow this sentencing to go forward. And if the federal judge says yes, then the government's going to appeal, and you're going to wind up in the federal court of appeals. And eventually, the Supreme Court is 2 steps away from the trial court. So basically you've got the second level of appeal. So you could conceivably get an issue on an emergency docket before the Court of Appeals, before the Supreme Court relatively quickly, if you are seeking an injunction to stop the trial court from imposing sentence. You're not asking them to throw out the conviction or to reverse the case. You just want to hit the pause button, stop it in its tracks so it doesn't go any further. Let the election happen, okay? And let an orderly election happen. And so that way you're protecting the nation's interests, if you will, in the election. So that's I think how I might want to do it. At least one of the things. All right. So before we get on to our last judge in the Georgia Court of Appeals, Mike says he's got a question. And, Mike's question is, why is the average Joe always held accountable for their actions, but the government officials are never held accountable for their actions? And that's probably a rhetorical question. The question makes the point, and I think he makes it very well. Susan's asking, would that go to the Supreme Court immediately? I'm assuming, Susan, you're asking about the scenario that I just posed. I think you would have to file this in a federal district court. That's the trial court. You can't file much directly in the Supreme Court because of, like, if it's one state suing another state, those things can be filed directly in the Supreme Court. I've heard some people say maybe some attorneys general on behalf of, let's just say the state of Texas wants to sue the state of New York over how New York has conducted this trial. That could be an original action filed directly in the Supreme Court. But barring something like that, I would file this appeal in the federal district court there, probably in the Southern District, I guess, of New York, where you can expect you're going to lose, but then you also expect to go quickly, because you got until the 11th of July. That's when the sentencing is. You go from there to the Court of Appeals. And at the Court of Appeals, you make your same argument. Say we've got to protect the integrity of the electoral process. So we need to stop this sentencing from occurring. We've got, the nominee for the Republican Party. We've got the election right around the corner. This is too much of a this is too much of a disturbance to our electoral system, too much chaos. So let's hit the pause button. And this Court of Appeals might say no. But once that happens, and you can make it happen quickly. This is all going to be happening on an emergency expedited basis. Once that happens, then you can appeal from the Court of Appeals. Then you can ask the Supreme Court to get it. So you can get it there, but you've got to go through the trial court. You got to go through the Court of Appeals. But I think you could get the case to the Supreme Court to consider whether they will take it up. You could make that happen before July the 11th, I believe. All right. So I hope that answers that question. All right. Almost 1,000 people in here. Welcome to Inside the Law. This is where we take you inside the real justice system, not just the one that you think we may have from watching it on TV, but the real one. And we use the cases that are in the news today to learn about the good, the bad, and the sometimes ugly things that you'll find in the justice system. All right. So we are getting into the Georgia Court of Appeals, and we are discussing the judges who will be addressing the Fani Willis disqualification issue. And we've been through Judge Land, we've been through Judge Trenton Brown, and we're going to turn to Judge Markle. But before we do that, I learned that Judge Yvette Miller recused herself, was going to be on this panel. She recused herself. She's appointed by Governor Roy Barnes, who's a Democrat, and reportedly was representing Fani Willis in connection with this Georgia Senate inquiry. But apparently Judge Yvette Miller recused herself, and it was something about retiring towards the end of the year. And I guess it's maybe she won't have the time or the ability to get to this case and to rule on it, perhaps before she's planning to retire. So for whatever reasons, she recused herself from this. And so one of these other judges got replaced, and I don't know which one replaced her, but it's also worth noting that she was appointed by a Democrat. Okay. And she served for a long time. She worked in Atlanta as a state court judge in Fulton County. Lots of other good qualifications and a long distinguished career in Georgia as a lawyer and also as a judge. But nevertheless, she recused herself. All right. So we got Judge Markle, who did not recuse himself and who is going to be one of the three that's going to decide this very important issue. All right. Judge Todd Markle was appointed to the Court of Appeals again by Governor Nathan Deal. So Nathan Deal is a former Republican governor of Georgia, but has apparently appointed most or all of these judges to some part of their judicial career. Obviously, in 2020, we were discussing how Judge Land made it to the Court of Appeals. That would have been obviously a Governor Kemp appointment, but Governor Nathan Deal brought a lot of these judges into the judiciary at some level. All right. So that was says prior to his appointment, Judge Markle served as a trial judge on the Superior Court of Fulton County. So that's where he would have been up until December 17th, 2018. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but I know for a fact that Fani Willis worked as an assistant district attorney for the Fulton County DA for her predecessor and former boss. And that would have, I believe she would have been there in the 2018, 2017 time period. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that to be the case. So if that's the case, I would imagine that Judge Markle at least knows of her and vice versa. What that means, I don't know. But I'm just saying that he served as a trial judge on the Superior Court of Fulton County. At the same time, I believe Ms. Willis was there working as an assistant district attorney. She may never have set foot in his courtroom. I just don't know. But it's possible that their paths have crossed. He began his legal career in 1989. He started his own law firm. Again, we have a judge who has been in private practice, and I really like that. I think it makes for some of the best judges. They've seen it from all sides. They've got level of appreciation for what the attorneys on each side go through in terms of running a private practice. Says he tried numerous jury trials and he has multiple reported appellate decisions. And what that means is that when you take a case up on appeal and you make law, it gets reported, as an appellate decision. So the lawyers involved in this case, they're going to make reported law because there's going to be reported appellate decisions on this issue. So there's not all lawyers can say that, because not all lawyers handle appeals. But when you handle appeals and you win and you basically help create case law, that's sort of a feather in your cap, right? So he's done appellate work as a private lawyer. So it says he left in 2011 to go into private practice to become executive counsel. Okay, so here he was executive counsel to newly elected Governor Deal. That explains how he got his judgeship. Okay, he was the executive counsel to the former governor, Nathan Deal. Says in this role, he served as the governor's chief legal advisor during the 2011 legislative session. He also chaired the inaugural Criminal Justice Reform Council, which made recommendations for addressing recidivism and which became the basis for some of Governor Deal's signature achievements. All right. So you know how Judge McAfee was appointed by Governor Kemp, Georgia's current Republican Governor Kemp. He was appointed to fill a vacancy. Well, this judge was also appointed to the Fulton County Superior Court by then Governor Deal. Okay. So, and then they wind up running usually unopposed. And that's a lot of times how judges begin their judicial career, is by some type of political appointment. All right. So then it goes on to say Governor Deal appointed Judge Markle to the Superior Court of Fulton County in August 2011. He won the next contested race to retain his seat in 2012, just like Judge McAfee recently did. And then he ran unopposed in 2016. So again, I believe that it's very likely he would have crossed paths with Miss Willis at some point when she was an assistant district attorney. I don't know that, but it seems reasonable to assume. He left private practice, executive counsel. He was appointed. All right. All the way through. Let's see. He goes on to say that when he was in the Fulton County on the Superior Court, he established the largest veterans treatment court in the state of Georgia. He and his team received national recognition on behalf of their work for veterans. That same year, Chief Justice Hugh Thompson, that's on the Georgia Supreme Court at the time, appointed Judge Markle to the Georgia Returning Veterans Task Force to make recommendations to the state for addressing legal issues faced by service members. Markle was named Outstanding Veterans Judge of the Year by the Military and Veterans Law Section of the State Bar and the Emory Law School Veterans Pro Bono Clinic. All right, quite the accomplishment there. So by appointment of the governor, he served on the Georgia Child Support Commission from 2016 to 2018. He's involved in the Atlanta Film Society, Rotary Club, Presbyterian Church, been involved in the Lawyers Club of Atlanta. He grew up in the South Cobb community, graduated from South Cobb High School, went to another University of Georgia graduate, Mercer Law School. Got a lot of Mercer Law graduates apparently on the Georgia Court of Appeals. But there you have it. That's the third of the three. We got Judge Markle. We've got Judge Brown, Trenton Brown, and Judge Benjamin Land. You can go to their website, check it out. I just thought I would go through it and discuss it with you guys, give you any thoughts that I had, but there you have it. That is their biography, if you will, and that's how they got there. And whether you can read anything into this, I don't know, but certainly I guess it's probably not the panel that Miss Willis would have handpicked if she could, but nevertheless, you've got these three judges, and if two of the three believe that she committed such misconduct that would have risen to the level that it necessitated her disqualification from this case, then they will rule that she should be disqualified. But there's another question. Don't forget, you've got to remember they have asked, as part of this, one of the remedies they've asked for, in addition to her disqualifications, they've asked for this indictment to be dismissed. And so it's going to play out a couple of different. Let's say they say Willis is going to stay. All right. If they say that Willis is going to stay, then the appellants, that would be the defendants seeking her disqualification, they could ask the Georgia Supreme Court to reverse the Georgia Court of Appeals. So there's another round of appeal out here past this that we could potentially get to. And by the same token, if they rule that Willis should be tossed off the case, Willis is probably going to ask the Georgia Supreme Court to put her back on. All right. So nevertheless, this is the current lay of the land. But if Willis winds up gone from the case, and let's say they don't dismiss the indictment, then we call it an orphan indictment. And it's a case without a prosecutor. So then there's a state agency called the Georgia Prosecuting Attorneys Council. It's their job to decide whether they want to assign another DA and who to assign it to, or they also have the right to keep it themselves, because the Prosecuting Attorneys Council can be a de facto district attorney if they need to and prosecute a case. But here's the thing. If they assign it to another prosecutor, I think that other prosecutor is going to have to start over, because they got to cure the odor of mendacity, for lack of a better phrase. I like that one just fine. Because there's so much that's happened in this case that might need to be cured. So does that mean you go all the way back to a special purpose grand jury? Do you go back to the regular criminal grand jury? Do you decide, okay, I'm going to be the new prosecutor and I'm going to decide not to prosecute the case? I just don't know. But I think as a practical matter, it would be very difficult to find another DA's office or prosecutor's office that wanted to take this up, because this takes up so much money and so much time and so much effort. I just don't see it happening. I think that even if they toss Willis off the case and they don't dismiss the indictment, I think as a practical matter, it's going to die on the vine naturally. So they might also go ahead and just dismiss it. They might order that it be dismissed due to prosecutorial misconduct. All right. I see a question real quick. If he has never been charged with any of the federal tax or campaign violations, I don't know sorry, Henry, I don't know who you're talking about, buddy. I'd like to try to answer your question, but I don't know who you're referring to. All right. So let me see. I know that some questions flew by. Let me see if I can pick some of them up. By the way, don't forget to hit the like button and tell all your friends to subscribe. And thank you, by the way, for the super chats. And I've had some super thanks have come in on videos that were at one time were live streams like this, and people watched them later. If that applies to you or anybody in the future, thank you for the super thanks as well. Question: does Georgia have any statute similar to the Hyde Amendment in which defendants can recover damages and attorney's fees? No. And I think that's a great thing to think about. Ashley Merchant, of all people, happens to be the president of the Georgia Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, and I know that there's been some discussion about approaching the legislature to create something like that, but there's no mechanism for people to get their lives back if they've been destroyed by a vindictive prosecutor. Not currently, anyway. You would have to figure out some separate legal basis for a cause of action, but there's nothing statutory per se like the Hyde Amendment. Great question, though. All right. Well, let's see. This chat moves so fast, I can't snag these sometimes. Would I like to be an appellate judge or a state Supreme Court judge? Who knows? Maybe later in my retirement, I wouldn't mind doing it. But to be honest with you, know what I want to do? I want to do this full time. I want this to be my full-time job at some point. I've been practicing law over 25 years. If I can turn streaming into a way to support myself into the later years of my legal career, then so be it. That's what I'm going to do. So I would not mind at all just streaming full time, because to me it's a lot of fun. I enjoy talking about the law, and we'll see what happens. But in the very unlikely event that lightning strikes somewhere just right, and I do get appointed to some type of judgeship, I think as a practical matter, I would, if I had to be a judge, I would rather be a trial judge, to be honest with you. I would not want to be an appellate judge. I think I just would like being in the regular courtroom having trials. That would be the type of judge I think I would want to be. But again, that's probably not in the cards. All right. Karen asked the question, heard that Trump's lawyers asked Mershon to lift the gag order, but he denied it. I think that's right. I think that also, I know that I heard the prosecutors were asking him to keep it in place. Now, the issue is going to be whether it's in place after the sentencing. Right now, we're still, the trial's over, but the sentencing hadn't happened. I think that he's keeping it in place. Whether he keeps it in place past the sentencing, if he keeps it in place past the sentencing, it would have to be some type of condition of like probation or something like that. That'd be the only way you could keep it. Let's see. So yeah, found this Megan. I was telling at the beginning of the stream, I don't know if you were here. For those of you who've just joined us today, earlier today, I was on with Megan Kelly along with our good friend Viva Fry. And we talked about all things law, everything that's in the news. We talked a lot about the Hunter Biden trial. We talked some about this issue here with the Willis disqualification. I won't tell you everything, but go check it out if you haven't seen the Megan Kelly show today. Check me and Viva out. We were in the first hour and a half. All right. My friend Dear Will Christian, and I owed you a text back today, by the way, Jason, because we're talking about getting together. I'm going to come on his show. We're working out of time. We might do it this Friday. I owe you a text back to talk about that. Subject to my schedule. Yeah, I'd love to jump in with you. Happy to do it. If you haven't checked out Dear Woke Christian, Jason, check out his channel. Lots of good stuff there. He's not a lawyer, but he sure does like to talk about the law. And I see we got a new member. Thank you for joining as a member of the channel as well. Those are the kinds of things that help me support this channel and continue to bring content. And if you like what you see, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and we provide links in the description for ways to support the channel. You're welcome. I thank you for saying that. I really appreciate the kind words. There was a question though that I wanted to get to. All right, here it is. This chat's moving so fast, it's hard for me to snag these things. During the argument for immunity, there was a question of state prosecutors overreaching to apply federal laws. It was argued that prosecutors would not do that. Sounds like something Jack Smith would have argued, but they will. They will do it. We've seen it. So we've got the U.S. Supreme Court about to issue a ruling on whether presidents get some kind of immunity from criminal prosecutions, just like they do in civil courts. And I think that they are going to be, I think they're going to be receptive to giving some degree of immunity, but I think they're going to send it back. I don't think they're going to rule directly yet. They're going to send the case back to the trial court. This is the DC case. And they're going to have to ask the trial court to have evidentiary hearings to make what we call findings of fact to determine if any or all of the conduct that's alleged to be criminal was something that Trump did in his official capacity as president or in a personal capacity as a candidate or something, or maybe some hybrid. Maybe it's some blend of the two. Maybe you can be doing things in your official capacity that also benefit your personal interest as a candidate. I don't know, but I think that the Supreme Court is going to say, yes, I think there's some degree of immunity, but we don't know if it applies because we don't know from the record that's been established so far. We don't know if this was personal conduct or official conduct. So I think they're going to send it back. And if they do that, by the way, that pushes it way, 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 way out beyond the election. And of course, if Trump wins, he could presumably pardon himself. All right. Question. Do I have any updates on the ethics complaint against Fannie Willis? Well, somebody who monitors these things just sent me something. Hang on. I have an update on this case. Right. We're breaking news. We'll have to tweet this out in just a minute. Atlanta, June 5th, 2024. Court of Appeals, State of Georgia. Michael Roman says the Court of Appeals hereby passes the following order. Michael Roman, David Schaefer, Robert Cheeley, Mark Meadows, Donald John Trump, Kathleen Latham, Rudolph Giuliani, Jeffrey Clark, Harrison Floyd. Breaking news. Proceedings below in the Superior Court of Fulton County are hereby stayed pending the outcome of these appeals. It's a one-page order. All right, let me see if I can get it in here and show it to y'all. Bear with me. All right. I want to see if I can add this order to the screen. Literally, this just came in. Okay, bear with me. I want you to see this. This is breaking news, hot off the press. All right, window, Roman stay. Here we go. Can you guys see this? All right, there it is. This is the. Now I got to figure out how I can move it. Here it is. All right. These are all the defendants who joined in this. All the ones who joined in this appeal. All right. So it's Roman, Schaefer, Cheeley, Meadows, Trump, Latham, Giuliani, Clark, and Floyd. As I said, the proceedings below in the Superior Court are hereby stayed pending the outcome of these appeals. Here it is, Supreme Court of Georgia, unpublished. They just cite the precedent for it. Not signed by any judge. It's just what we call a per curiam, just an order of the court. It doesn't have any particular judge, but they have nevertheless stopped the entire proceedings, at least involving these defendants. But as a practical matter, it's all of them. The state, this is frozen in place, folks, right here. You heard it here inside the law before you heard it anywhere else. That's it. All right. So they're stayed. That means that there's nothing is going on. Yep. Fannie's probably in a rampage right now. Yep. This is interesting news. Great news. So a lot of people are just asking, what does stayed means? It means that they can't take any other action in this case while this case is up on appeal. It means that the trial court is powerless to do anything with this case. So we got to wait until the Court of Appeals hears argument and issues a ruling and sends it back to Judge McAfee for him to do something with. All right. There you have it. All right, folks. Thank you all for hanging in with me. And I'm going to go ahead and looks like the internet's not exactly being that strong right now. So I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. But thank you all for being here. And I will check you next time right here inside the law.